of the writing, as I said already, it's a 20-minute section of the test. You only get 20 minutes to write it. You don't get a second shorter or a second longer, exactly 20 minutes. In the test, they'll give you 2 pages, right? So obviously, a few of you out there, me included, if you write very big, you need to decrease the size of your writing. Because what do you think is going to happen if you write very big and you only get given 2 pages? Yes, Nikhil?
You're not going to be able to fit it all in.
Exactly, so that's exactly right. So whatever you want to say, you might not be able to fit everything in. And you can't actually ask for extra papers. Like for example, other tests, you can be like, can I get some more paper? In the selective test, you don't. It's 2 pages and that's it. Usually it's creative writing. So in the past, sometimes they've asked, do a creative piece of writing. Other times, like for example, last year, they said, you get to write whatever you want. Does that make sense? So you can write, creative, you can write an explanation, you can write a persuasive. It's up to you. And usually, what you'll notice is in the stimulus, it's either a photo or a sentence. Does that make sense? Yeah? So it's either a photo or a sentence, and usually what you'll find with it is very abstract. Does anyone know what abstract means? Yeah?
Like it's not like, so it's like you can't expand with it a lot. Like you have to write something that's with the topic.
Kind of. So like what I mean by, so what abstract means is, okay, so I'll go through it. So what abstract means is it's not literal. So for example, if you had a photo of some guy flying an aeroplane, a pilot in the pilot seat of an aeroplane, that's very literal. So you look at it, it's straight off the bat, the story has to be something about a pilot flying an aeroplane. Does that make sense? In the past, if you look at it, I've written it down here, but in 2016, the selective test, the writing stimulus, was 2 children laughing, right? So obviously, that it has to involve something about 2 children laughing, but the exact activities that they're doing is not very clear. Can you see that? Yeah? Okay. And in 2017, most of you probably already know, but the stimulus was 2 chains connected by a zip tie. You know what a zip tie is? Those, the plastic things where you put it in and you kind of pull it tight and then you can't pull it the other way. Yeah? So it was 2 chains connected by a plastic zip tie, cable tie, whatever you want to call it. As you can see, it's not a very clear, not a literal thing where it says, where you can kind of look at the picture and say, I need to write about this exactly, right? It's something where it's open to interpretation. You have to get meaning out of it and then write your own story. Does it make sense? And this year, who knows what this year's selective test was? Yeah? So about a few of you. But this year in the selective test, the writing topic was something along the lines of, it was a quote, and it said something along the lines of, alone we can do very little, but together we can do so much more. Yeah? So as you can see there, it gives you the general idea of that, the general concept that they want you to talk about, but it doesn't talk about the exact the exact content that it wants you to talk about. Here, I'll just list a few things that you need to do overall. It's not just for the introduction, not just for the body or the middle of your writing, and it's not just for the conclusion. This is something that will be for the whole writing. So the first thing that I would recommend is write in third person and past tense. The next thing, so by the way, write this all down. This is very useful. The other thing that you need is high vocabulary. And you're aiming for about year 8 or 9. The next thing is intermixing. I'll go through this, but I'm just going to write it down first. But intermixing of plot progression and description. And the last thing that you need to do is avoid certain topics. Okay, good. So third person and past tense. Does everyone know what third person and past tense is? Yeah? So third person is writing, for example, let's just say Lawrence, right? Lawrence went down to the shops to buy a carton of milk for his parents. Does that make sense? First person is things like, I went down to the shops to buy a carton of milk. Does that make sense? So you can do very well by writing in first person, but just in general, based on my personal experience, it's a lot easier for people to write in third person, at least for your age. Yeah? All right, the next thing is you need to aim for high level vocabulary. Yeah, high level vocabulary. So you need to aim for about year 8 or year 9 level. Yeah, so a lot of you guys, vocabulary is not too bad for the age that you are, but because selective test is very competitive, you need to aim for that higher level of vocabulary standard. So obviously that means that you have to do a lot of active learning new words, because if you naturally learn, you won't get to that level. The next thing is intermixing of plot progression and description, right? So who knows what plot progression is? Yeah, so a few of you. So plot progression, what that is moving the story along, right? So obviously if you write, think about, let's say something basic like going on a road trip, right? If you spend your whole story writing about packing your bags, which you shouldn't write, by the way, but if you did spend your whole story writing about packing your bags for the road trip, you are not progressing your plot. You're not moving your plot forward. You are staying at the start of your story. And description. So description is just describing all in general, I would recommend just describing the 5 senses. That's an easy place to start, but just description in general is very important. If you read the booklet, you'll notice that I recommend doing, start off with a big paragraph of description, then move to plot progression. Yeah, then do more description, then go to plot progression, right? So if you're aiming for like 15, 16s, you can do that. It's very, basic. You just follow those steps. That's fine. But if you're aiming for like 18, 19, 20 level, you need to mix those two things together. Does that make sense? Good. So, and the last one is avoid certain topics. So there are certain topics like fighting, violence, war, like things like that, which you want to avoid. So the reason why, it's not because it's absolutely wrong to write about those things, but some markers don't like, some people think they're not appropriate topics to write about. In the selective writing, this is a general guideline of what you need to do. So from 0 to 2 minutes, you want to do your planning. From 2 to 5 minutes, you want to do your intro. So it's setting the scene, and context. So those are the 2 things you need to do in your introduction. Setting the scene and the context. In your writing, you want maybe around, maybe you might want around 3 main events in your writing. So if you do 3 main events that occur, it will look something like this. 5 to 10 minutes is event 1. 10 to 15 minutes is event 2. And 15 to 20 minutes is event 3. Good. So this is a general guideline of what you need to follow. Obviously you can deviate a few seconds here and there, but in general, this is what you need to follow.